So for today's lesson title will be The Liberty of Abode, Obligation of Contracts, and Non-Imprisonment Clause. So the liberty of abode and right to travel. So it is the right of a person to have his home in whatever place chosen by him or thereafter to change at will, and to go to where he pleases and without the inference of any sources. So basically, this is the right of a person to have a home, to have a place, to have a residence, and his right to travel around the world where he wanted to. Um, Rights guaranteed are the liberties of abode, which is constitutional right to choose and change one residence. The rights to travel is freedom of locomotion or movement in and out the country. Um, Next, the limitation on the liberty of abode. So one of its limitation is upon lawful order of the court, one cannot enjoy the freedom of having a residence or to travel or to reside, rather not travel, with um, with the lawful order of the court. For example, if a person has been convicted and then he been convicted has been accused of something, and then the court issued a search warrant, a warrant of arrest to that specific person, and then he suddenly magbalhin og balay, change residency, then one of its limitation is upon the lawful order of the court. So he's been restricted by that. Next is within the limits prescribed by the law. So again, if a person has committed a crime, he will be apprehended and has been restricted to um, to change or to have his rights to own a residency or to have residency. Next is the limitation of right to travel. So the right to travel cannot be impaired except in the interest of national security, public safety, and public health as be provided by law. Again, if a person has been convicted or accused for some crimes that violates the law, the court has a lawful order that is the person is restricted to travel for the purpose of proceeding in a trial court. So next is when a person is released on bail. So if a person has been bailed out, he is limited to his right is limited to travel. So the Article 3 Bill of Rights Section 6 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, or the liberty of abode and of changing the same within the limits prescribed by the law, shall not be impaired except upon lawful order of the court. That's what I said earlier. Neither shall the right of travel be impaired except the interest of national security, public safety, and public health as may be by provided. So the eviction and demolition. So eviction and demolition as a practice should be discouraged. However, may be allowed under following situation. So demolition, the destruction of private or public properties of the citizens. So one of its allowed situations is when a person or entities occupy danger area. So if they reside in the danger area, or for example a flood prone area, and then they are subjected for eviction, um, they must be that is not prohibited, since they also the government will provide relocation area for the families, or should be given a just compensation to provide for their rebuilding and to start for their new life. So next is when the government is infrastructure the project that with available funding are about to be implemented. For example, in a squatter area, that place will be a main highway that used to be main highway and planned to be the main highway or the extension of highway, then that will be subjected to demolition. But according to the power of eminent domain, upon taking over a private property for public use, there must be enough just compensation for them given by the government. Next will be when there is court order. So, a court editing order coming from the court is also part of that situation. Next is impairment clause of non-impairment of contracts. So it is a law or duty which binds the parties from their agreements. It is notary of the law, morals, good customs, public office, policies, and orders. So the Article 3 Bill of Rights Section 10 of the Philippine Constitution, no law impairing the obligation contract shall be passed. Scope of terms of law and contract, that the law is enactment of which prohibited includes executive and administrative orders of the President, administrative order issued by the heads of departments, and ordinance enacted by the local government. So, what is contract? So, a contract is a written agreement between two persons. This term contract is also used to the impairment clause, refers to the lawful, not only just agreement but lawful agreement on property rights. It's whether real or person, tangible or intangible. Next is an obligation. So an obligation is a contract that vinculum juris on the tie that binds the parties together. Next is impairment. So impairment is anything that diminishes the efficiency of the contract. So next is obligation of when obligation of a contract impaired. So the obligation of contract is impaired when in terms of condition are changed by the law or the party without the consent of the other, so thereby weakening the position of the rights of the latter. Note that despite of the impairment clause, a contract that is valid at the time of execution may be legally modified or evenly completed validated by the subsequent law. If the law is proper exercise of the police power, it will prevail over the contract, or freedom to contract is not absolute contract. And lastly, the Article 3 Bill of Rights Section 11 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, or the freedom access to the court and quasi-judicial bodies and adequate legal assistance shall not be denied to any person. So, it is the freedom of access to the court, the article in Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we stand for First International Act, where it was predicted in a full human rights states with the following: that everyone is entitled in full equality to a fair and open court by an independent and important tribunal in the determination of his rights, obligations, and of criminal charges against him. So that is the free access to courts.